She saw the mechanic crawling under the trucks, moving like he didn't want to be seen. Her heart knew something was wrong, the same instinct that cost her father his life. What she didn't know, the terrified man wasn't the villain. He was being forced to create a disaster that would change everything, and only an 11-year-old girl could stop it. The diesel engines rumbled like sleeping giants preparing to wake. 6 massive trucks sat lined up at the Elk Mountain rest stop, their chrome grills gleaming under the weak winter sun. Snow crunched beneath heavy boots as drivers performed their final checks, breath misting in the freezing Wyoming air. Jake Martinez zipped his jacket and reached for his door handle. 15 years of long-haul driving, and he'd never been late with a delivery. Today wouldn't be the first. Don't start them. The scream tore through the quiet morning like a knife. Jake spun around. A girl, couldn't be older than 11, was sprinting across the icy parking lot, her sneakers sliding dangerously with each frantic step. Her dark hair flew wild behind her, and her face was flushed red with panic and cold. Stop. Please stop. She skidded to a halt between Jake's truck and the next one, her small chest heaving. Don't start your engines. The brakes, they won't work. Other drivers emerged from their cabs, curious and annoyed. A heavy-set man named Lou called down, "Kid, what are you talking about?" A man, she gasped for air, pointing toward the far end of the lot. A mechanic. I saw him. He went under your trucks. He was doing something to them, something bad. Jake exchanged glances with the other drivers. The girl looked terrified, not crazy. Something in her eyes made him hesitate. What exactly did you see? Jake knelt down to her level. About 10 minutes ago. I was sitting in my mom's car over there, she pointed to a silver sedan near the bathroom building. I saw a guy in a mechanic's uniform crawl under the trucks with tools. He was being sneaky, kept looking around like he didn't want anyone to see. When he left, he was practically running. Where's your mom now? Asked Sarah Chen, the only other female driver in the group. Bathroom. She doesn't know I got out. But I had to warn you. I saw him mess with something under there, metal parts. He used a wrench. Jake's stomach tightened. Lou, get your flashlight. Tommy, you too. The men grabbed their equipment and dropped to the ground, sliding beneath the trucks. The girl crouched beside Jake, watching anxiously as the beam of light swept along the undercarriage. Holy, Lou's voice went tight. Jake, get under here. Now. Jake's blood turned cold. He slid beneath his own rig, and what he saw made his breath catch. The brake chamber bolts were missing, completely gone. The air lines that controlled the brake system had been cut partway through, hanging by threads that would snap the moment pressure built up. Check the others. Jake shouted, scrambling out. One by one, the drivers checked their trucks. 4 out of 6 had been sabotaged. If they'd started those engines and pulled onto the highway, the brakes would have failed within minutes. At highway speed, with the descent down Elk Mountain ahead, it would have been a massacre. Who did this? Sarah's voice shook with fury and fear. The girl was already pointing. Him. That's him. Across the rest stop, near the tree lean, a figure in a dark blue mechanic's uniform was climbing into a white pickup truck. Even from a distance, Jake could see the panic in the man's movements, fumbling with keys, looking over his shoulder. Hey! Hey! Lou started running, but the pickup's engine roared to life. Gravel sprayed as the truck fishtailed onto the access road and disappeared toward the highway. Jake pulled out his phone, fingers flying across the screen as he dialed 911. While he reported the incident, Tommy was already photographing the damage under the trucks, documenting everything. Officers are on their way, Jake said, ending the call. He turned to the girl. You just saved our lives. What's your name? Lily. She wrapped her arms around herself, shivering. Lily Morrison. Lily, you're incredibly brave. But I need to ask, how did you know to look? Most kids wouldn't have noticed anything. Lily's expression shifted, something dark and sad passing over her young face. Because I've seen what happens when people don't pay attention to truck safety. My dad, she swallowed hard. My dad died 3 years ago. His truck's brakes failed on a mountain road. The investigation said it was maintenance negligence, someone didn't do their job right. So now I always pay attention. I can't help it. The drivers fell silent. Sarah reached out and gently squeezed Lily's shoulder. There's something else, Lily said quietly. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a crumpled photograph. When that mechanic guy dropped his toolbox near the bathroom building, this fell out. He didn't notice, but I picked it up. She handed the photo to Jake. It showed a young boy, maybe 8 years old, with sandy blonde hair and a gap-toothed smile. He was holding a baseball bat, frozen mid-swing in someone's backyard. So? Lou frowned. So I've seen this boy before, Lily's voice dropped to a whisper. There's a missing person poster at the grocery store back in Rollins. Same kid. Same picture. He disappeared 6 weeks ago. Jake felt the pieces of something larger clicking into place, though he couldn't yet see the full picture. He looked at the damaged trucks, thought about the panicked mechanic fleeing the scene, and stared at the photo of the missing child. This isn't random vandalism, he said slowly. This is something worse. A sedan pulled up near them, Lily's mother, looking frantic. Lily. I told you to stay in the car. Mom, I had to. It's okay, ma'am, Sarah interrupted gently. Your daughter just prevented a major accident. Possibly saved multiple lives. As Lily explained everything to her mother, and as sirens began wailing in the distance, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that they'd stumbled onto something dangerous. The mechanic's face had been twisted with fear, not malice. And that photo. Why would a man sabotaging trucks be carrying a picture of a missing child? The wind picked up, scattering snow across the parking lot. Jake looked at his fellow drivers, then at the brave little girl who'd trusted her instincts and spoken up. Whatever this was, it wasn't over. It was just beginning. The tow trucks arrived like a funeral procession, hauling the sabotaged rigs through the quiet streets of Medicine Bow, Wyoming. Population, 274. The kind of town where strangers got noticed and secrets didn't stay buried long. Ray's garage sat at the edge of town, a squat building with faded red paint and a hand-carved sign that had weathered 40 winters. Ray himself was 73, with oil-stained hands and eyes that missed nothing. Jake stood in the garage bay, watching Ray examine the damage under his truck. The old man's face grew darker with each discovery. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing, Ray muttered, running his finger along the severed air line. This wasn't random. These cuts were precise, designed to fail under pressure, not immediately. You'd have made it 5, maybe 10 miles before total brake loss. Can you fix them? Sarah asked. I can. But it'll take most of the day for all 4 trucks, Ray straightened up, wiping his hands on a rag. The police been by yet? Officer Carson took our statements at the rest stop, Jake said. Said he'd follow up. Ray snorted. Carson couldn't find his own shadow at noon. You want real help, you'll need the county sheriff. But he's in Casper today, won't be back till tomorrow. Lily sat on a stack of tires in the corner, still clutching the photograph. Her mother had reluctantly agreed to let her stay after realizing the police might need to question her again. Now she studied the image like it held the answer to a puzzle. Mr. Ray? Lily's voice was small but clear. Can I show you something? She approached the old mechanic, holding out the photo. Do you recognize this boy? Or the man who was sabotaging the trucks? Ray pulled reading glasses from his pocket and examined the picture. His expression shifted, just a flicker, but Jake caught it. "Can't say I know the boy," Ray said carefully. "But let me check my security footage. Camera covers the parking lot and part of the highway." He led them to a cramped office that smelled of coffee and motor oil. An ancient desktop computer sat on a cluttered desk. Ray clicked through folders until grainy black and white footage appeared on screen. "This is from last Thursday," he said. "Around 3 in the afternoon." The video showed a white pickup truck, the same one from the rest stop, pulling into Ray's parking lot. A man got out, tall and lean, his face partially visible. "That's him." Lily pointed. "That's the mechanic." Ray zoomed in on the man's uniform. Even through the poor quality video, they could make out a logo on the breast pocket, a shield with crossed wrenches and the letters TLG. "Trinity Logistics Group," Ray said quietly. "Big operation out of Nebraska. They handle freight coordination, warehousing, security contracts. They've been expanding into Wyoming the last year or so." "Why would a logistics company employ someone to sabotage trucks?" Sarah frowned. "That's the question, isn't it?" Ray rewound the footage. "But here's what bothers me more, that man came here asking about brake systems. Said he was doing routine certifications for Trinity, needed to understand different truck models. I gave him some technical manuals, talked shop for maybe 20 minutes. He seemed knowledgeable, professional. Not like someone planning." Ray gestured toward the garage bay. Jake leaned closer to the screen. "Can you print that image?" Ray clicked a few buttons, and an old printer wheezed to life, spitting out a grainy but recognizable photo of the man. Tommy suddenly spoke up from the doorway. "Guys, you need to see this." He held up his phone, displaying a trucking forum. The post was from an hour ago. "Urgent, 2 trucks reported brake sabotage on I-80 near Lincoln, Nebraska. Same MO, cut air lines, missing bolts. One driver checked before pulling out, found the damage. Who else has been hit?" Below it, 3 more comments. "Same thing happened near Des Moines. Found it during routine check. Colorado Springs here. Our entire fleet got inspected after suspicious activity at our depot. 6 trucks compromised. This is organized. Someone's targeting long-haul operations." The room fell silent. This wasn't an isolated incident. It was coordinated across multiple states. Lily stood up, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. "He's being forced to do this. I'm sure of it." "What makes you say that?" Jake asked. "Because of how he ran. He wasn't angry or mean, he was scared. And this photo," she held up the picture of the boy. "Why would someone doing bad things carry around a picture of a missing kid unless that kid means something to him?" Sarah's eyes widened. "Unless it's his son. And someone's making him sabotage trucks by threatening the boy," Jake finished. Ray removed his glasses slowly. "If you're right, then whoever's behind this is still out there. And that man, Ethan, if we get his name confirmed, is still being controlled." "Which means this isn't over," Tommy said grimly. "More trucks could be targeted right now." Jake looked at his fellow drivers, then at Lily, who'd shown more courage in one morning than most adults managed in a lifetime. His delivery schedule was shot anyway. The question now wasn't about getting back on the road, it was about stopping whoever was orchestrating this before someone died. "Ray, can you rush those repairs?" Jake asked. "I can have you road ready by 6 tonight." "Why?" Jake picked up the printed image of the mechanic. "Because we're going to find him. And we're going to find out who's pulling his strings." The convoy rolled out at dawn, headlights cutting through the pre-dawn darkness. 4 trucks, freshly repaired, moved in tight formation along I-80 East. And in Jake's passenger seat, bundled in a borrowed jacket, sat Lily. Her mother had surprised everyone. After a long, tearful conversation in Ray's office, she'd agreed to let Lily travel with the convoy, at least as far as Nebraska. "She won't let this go," Mrs. Morrison had said quietly. "And honestly, neither can I. Not after what she told me about that boy." Now, as the Wyoming plains gave way to the Nebraska sandhills, the CB radio crackled with voices. Truckers used Channel 19 for chatter, warnings about speed traps, weather conditions. But today, the conversations were different. "Heard it was 12 trucks in Iowa. Friend of mine found his airline cut clean through at a rest stop near Omaha. Police ain't doing nothing. They think it's copycats." Jake turned up the volume. Lily leaned forward, listening intently. Sarah's voice came through on the radio from the truck behind them. "Jake, you hearing this? Every word. This is bigger than we thought." Tommy chimed in. "I've been on the forums all night. Reports are coming from 7 states now. All the same pattern: brake sabotage, airlines cut, bolts removed. All at rest stops or truck depots. No witnesses except us." "Not all the same," Lou's gravelly voice cut in. "Most of these truckers found the damage before pulling out. Someone's tipping them off, or they're getting lucky. But here's the thing, 3 trucks in Missouri didn't get lucky. They had accidents yesterday. One jackknifed on Highway 70. Drivers in critical condition." Lily's hand gripped the door handle. "It's getting worse." Jake glanced at her. "What are you thinking?" "That whoever's making that mechanic do this is getting desperate. Maybe the plan isn't working fast enough, so they're forcing him to work faster, be less careful." Smart kid, Jake thought. Too smart for her own good, maybe. They stopped for fuel outside Grand Island, Nebraska. While the others pumped diesel, Lily disappeared toward the rest stop building. Jake found her 5 minutes later, standing in front of a bulletin board covered with flyers and notices. "Lily?" She pointed to a faded poster, weather-worn and curling at the edges. "Missing, Caleb Hale, age 8, last seen October 15, Wichita, Kansas, sandy blonde hair, blue eyes, 4 feet 2 inches. If you have information, please contact." It was the same boy from the photograph. No question. "Caleb Hale," Lily whispered. "Now we know his name." Jake photographed the poster with his phone, capturing every detail. The father's name was listed as Ethan Hale. Contact information. A desperate plea from a mother: "Our baby is out there. Please help us find him." October 15, Jake said. That's 6 weeks ago. Right around when these sabotage incidents started appearing, according to the forum posts. Lily's eyes were wet, but her voice stayed steady. They took his son to make him do this. That's why he was crying. Crying? When did you hear him cry? I didn't tell anyone because I wasn't sure it mattered, but Lily looked down at her sneakers. 3 days ago, Mom and I stopped at a grocery store in Rawlins. I saw that same man, Ethan, on his phone in the parking lot. He was crying, telling someone, "I did what you asked. I did everything. Please don't hurt my son." Then he just got in his truck and drove away. I didn't think. I mean, people have problems, right? But when I saw him at the rest stop, I recognized him. Jake's mind raced. The timeline was clicking into place. Ethan Hale's son disappears 6 weeks ago. Shortly after, trucks across the Midwest start getting sabotaged. Ethan is spotted at multiple locations, always nervous, always scared. He's not working alone, Jake said. He can't be. These incidents are happening in different states simultaneously. Unless there's more than one person being forced, Lily finished. More people with missing kids. The thought sent ice through Jake's veins. Back at the trucks, he gathered the other drivers and shared what they'd found. Sarah pulled up the news on her phone, searching for Caleb Hale's case. "Here," she said. "Missing from a playground in Wichita." Police suspected parental abduction at first because Ethan and his ex-wife were in a custody dispute, but Ethan was at work with dozens of witnesses. The ex-wife was in Denver. Security footage showed a white van, no plates visible, no suspects identified. "Professional job," Tommy muttered. Lou crossed his arms. "So what's the endgame? Why sabotage trucks? What do they gain from causing accidents?" No one had an answer. They were climbing back into their cabs when Lily's borrowed phone, one of those cheap prepaid ones Mrs. Morrison had insisted she carry, buzzed. She looked at the screen and frowned. "That's weird. It's a voicemail, but I didn't hear it ring." She put it on speaker. What they heard made everyone freeze. A computerized voice, cold and mechanical. "Ethan, you have 48 hours. The highway incident must happen as planned, or the boys' timeline accelerates. No more delays. No more excuses. Proof of completion required by Friday noon, or Caleb becomes a statistic." The message ended with a beep. Lily's face had gone white. "That wasn't meant for me. This number. Oh God, it must be close to his number." They misdialed. Jake grabbed the phone, his hands shaking. "Friday noon. That's tomorrow. They're planning something big." The Trinity Logistics Group distribution center sprawled across 40 acres of Kansas flatland, just outside Wichita. Massive warehouses, rows of loading docks, and a sea of trucks bearing dozens of different company logos. The place hummed with activity even at 9 in the morning. Jake pulled the convoy into a visitor parking area, earning suspicious looks from security guards. This wasn't the kind of facility where strangers just showed up. "We need a plan," Sarah said as they gathered between the trucks. "We can't just walk in and accuse them of kidnapping and sabotage." "Why not?" Lou cracked his knuckles. "Worked for me in Philly once." "Because you got arrested in Philly," Tommy reminded him. Lily had been quiet during the 3-hour drive from Nebraska. Now she studied the facility with the same intense focus she'd had at the rest stop. "Look at the trucks," she said, pointing. Among the commercial delivery vehicles, Jake spotted several armored trucks, the kind used for cash transport. They bore a different logo, a shield with the letters STS beneath it. "Secure Transit Solutions," Sarah read from her phone. "Subsidiary of Trinity Logistics. They handle high-value cargo, bank transfers, ATM servicing, payroll delivery for major corporations. There's 6 of them," Lily counted. "All parked together near that separate building." The building she indicated was set apart from the main warehouses, surrounded by additional fencing and security cameras. Jake felt something click in his mind. "What day is tomorrow?" "Friday," Tommy said. "Black Friday," Sarah corrected. "Day after Thanksgiving. Biggest shopping day of the year." "Which means cash transport," Jake said slowly. "Stores need to move enormous amounts of physical currency on Black Friday. Banks, retail chains, casinos, everyone's moving money." Lou's eyes widened. "And if there's a massive pileup on the highway? Police, ambulances, fire trucks all responding to a disaster," Sarah continued. "Roads blocked for hours. Which means armored trucks would be stuck, rerouted, delayed. Or ambushed during the chaos," Jake finished. "Nobody's watching for a robbery when there's a catastrophic accident tying up every emergency responder in the region." Lily's voice was barely a whisper. "That's why they need the trucks to crash tomorrow. It's not just about causing accidents, it's about creating the perfect distraction." They stood in silence, the weight of it settling over them. Somewhere, Ethan Hale was being forced to ensure trucks would crash on one of the busiest travel days of the year. And if he failed, his son would die. We need proof, Sarah said. Something concrete to take to the FBI. I'll try the front office, Jake said. Play dumb, say we're here about a shipping contract. See what I can learn. I'm coming with you, Lily said firmly. Lily. I'm the only one who's seen Ethan up close. If he's here, I'll recognize him. She had a point. The reception area was all corporate polish, glass walls, leather furniture, and a bored receptionist who barely looked up as they entered. Help you? She asked, eyes on her computer screen. We're looking into contract opportunities, Jake said with his best professional smile. We run a small fleet, heard Trinity might be hiring owner-operators. You'll want to submit an application online. We don't handle that here. Right, of course. Actually, a friend of mine works here, Ethan Hale. Mechanic? Said he could put in a good word. The receptionist's fingers paused on her keyboard. We don't have anyone by that name. You sure? About 6 foot, thin, works in maintenance. Sir, I've worked here 2 years. We don't have an Ethan Hale. Now if you'll excuse me. The door behind her opened and a man in an expensive suit emerged, phone pressed to his ear. He glanced at Jake and Lily with casual disinterest, then froze mid-step. His eyes locked on Lily's face. I'll call you back, he said into the phone, never breaking eye contact. Jake's instincts screamed danger. The man's expression had shifted from surprise to calculation in less than a second. Can I help you folks? The man asked, his smile not reaching his eyes. Just leaving, Jake said, taking Lily's hand. Wrong facility. Our mistake. They walked out calmly, but Jake's heart was pounding. He felt the man's eyes on them all the way to the parking lot. That guy recognized you, Jake said once they were out of earshot. I know, Lily said. But how? I've never been here before. Back at the trucks, Tommy was practically vibrating with urgency. We've got a problem. I've been monitoring traffic reports. They're calling for ice storms tonight across Oklahoma and southern Kansas. Highway 35 and the Turner Turnpike, major routes for Black Friday travel. Perfect conditions for accidents, Sarah said grimly. Lou pointed at the armored trucks. Those rigs left 10 minutes ago. All 6 of them, headed south in a convoy. Jake pulled out his phone and opened a maps application, tracing routes. If someone sabotaged trucks on the Turner Turnpike during tomorrow's holiday traffic, in ice storm conditions, it would be a massacre, Sarah finished. And the armored trucks would be somewhere in that same corridor. Lily's borrowed phone buzzed. Another voicemail, same wrong number. Same mechanical voice. Final confirmation, Turner Turnpike, southbound, mile marker 138. Friday, 2 p.m. Brake failures must occur during peak traffic descent. Payment transferred upon news confirmation. The boy will be released when it's done. Mile marker 138. Jake knew that stretch, a steep downgrade where trucks picked up dangerous speed. In ice, with failed brakes, during holiday traffic. They're going to kill dozens of people, Lily whispered, horror dawning on her face. Not if we stop them first, Jake said. We've got less than 30 hours. Tommy, call the FBI. Sarah, get highway patrol on the line. Lou. Already checking my shotgun, Lou said grimly. We're not going in armed, Jake said. We're truckers, not vigilantes. But we are going to find Ethan Hale, and we're going to stop this. He looked at Lily, whose small face was set with determination that reminded him of tempered steel. You saved us once, he said. Now let's save everyone else. The FBI agent's voice on the phone was professional, detached, and utterly unhelpful. We appreciate the information, Mr. Martinez, but without concrete evidence of an imminent threat, we can't deploy resources based on a misdialed voicemail and speculation about armored truck robberies. Speculation? Jake's knuckles whitened around the phone. We have documented sabotage across 7 states, a missing child, and a specific time and location, which we will investigate through proper channels. In the meantime, I strongly advise you to leave this to law enforcement and return to your regular routes. The line went dead. Bureaucratic idiots, Lou muttered from the driver's seat beside him. They were racing south on Highway 81, pushing the speed limit as darkness fell across Kansas. We're on our own. Not entirely alone, Jake thought. Sarah and Tommy were running parallel routes, trying to cover more ground. They'd split up 2 hours ago at a truck stop outside Wichita, each taking different highways that fed into the Turner Turnpike. Lily sat in the sleeper berth, laptop open, borrowed from Tommy, cross-referencing traffic cameras, news reports, anything that might give them a lead on Ethan's location. There, she said suddenly. White pickup truck, registered to Ethan Hale. Caught on a traffic camera 90 minutes ago heading south on I-35, Oklahoma plates. Where exactly? Near Bremen. That's, she checked the map, about 40 minutes ahead of us, right at the Oklahoma border. Jake's radio crackled. Sarah's voice, Jake, I've got something. There's an old textile factory outside Oklahoma City, about 20 miles from mile marker 138. Place has been abandoned for 3 years, but I just passed it. There's lights inside and fresh tire tracks in the dirt access road. GPS coordinates? Sarah rattled them off. Jake punched them into his navigation system. 73 miles away. An hour and 20 minutes if traffic cooperated. Sarah, hold position but stay hidden. We're coming to you. Copy that. But Jake? There's something else. A van just pulled up to the factory. Black, no plates visible. 3 men got out, all armed. Jake's stomach dropped. Armed with what? Rifles. Maybe AR-15s. These aren't amateurs. Lily leaned forward between the seats, her face pale but focused. They're going to force him to do it tonight. Get the trucks ready for tomorrow. Or they're tying up loose ends, Lou said darkly. Kid, no offense, but if these guys are professional enough to orchestrate a multi-state operation, they're not planning to leave witnesses. That mechanic? He's a dead man walking. Then we get there first, Jake said, pressing the accelerator. The landscape blurred past, empty fields, scattered farmhouses, the occasional gas station glowing like an oasis in the darkness. Jake's mind raced faster than the truck. 3 armed men. A hostage situation. What were 4 truckers and an 11-year-old girl supposed to do against that? Lily's phone buzzed again. She stared at the screen, then gasped. It's not a voicemail this time. It's a text. And it's not meant for Ethan. She held up the phone. The message read. Hale is becoming unstable. Recommend termination after Friday completion. Boy is liability. Dispose of both. Confirm receipt. That's a death sentence, Lou breathed. Jake grabbed his radio. Sarah, Tommy, you both hearing this? Loud and clear, Tommy responded from somewhere on Highway 77. Jake, we need real backup. Police, SWAT, something. We don't have time. Sarah, what's your 20? Parked behind an old grain silo, about 300 yards from the factory. I can see the entrance, but they've got sentries posted. Jake made a decision. Everybody converge on Sarah's position. We're going in, but we're going in smart. Define smart, Lou said. We create a distraction, get Ethan and his son out, and let the professionals handle the rest. And if the boy's not there? Jake didn't have an answer for that. 20 minutes later, they regrouped in the shadow of the grain silo. The old factory loomed in the distance, a skeletal structure of brick and broken windows, lit from within by harsh work lights. 2 vehicles sat outside, Ethan's white pickup and the black van Sarah had seen. Through binoculars, Jake counted 4 men visible. 2 standing guard outside, 2 moving inside the building. And there, through a ground-floor window, a figure hunched over something mechanical. "That's him," Lily whispered, peering through her own smaller binoculars. "That's Ethan. He's working on. I think it's a truck brake system. They've got parts laid out on a workbench." "But where's Caleb?" Sarah asked. Tommy had pulled up a set of blueprints on his laptop, public records from when the factory was operational. "There's a basement level. If they're holding the kid, that's where he'd be." Jake studied the layout. 2 entrances, main loading dock at the front, fire exit on the south side. The fire exit would be their way in. "Here's the plan," he said. "Lou, you're the distraction. Drive your truck up to the main entrance, make noise, say you broke down and need help. While they're focused on you, Sarah and I go in through the fire exit. Tommy, you stay with Lily." "No," Lily's voice was steel. "I'm coming. Ethan doesn't know you. If he's scared, if they've broken him, he won't trust strangers. But he might trust the girl who tried to save people at the rest stop." Jake wanted to argue, but he saw the determination in her eyes. The same look she'd had when she ran between the trucks shouting warnings. "Fine. But you stay behind us, and if I say run, you run. Clear? Clear." Lou fired up his engine. "Give me 5 minutes, then move." "And Jake? Try not to get shot. I hate paperwork." As Lou's truck rumbled toward the factory, headlights blazing, Jake led Sarah and Lily into the darkness. The fire exit was rusted but unlocked. They slipped inside, flashlights off, moving by moonlight through the broken windows. The building smelled of decay and motor oil. Voices echoed from the main floor above them. Jake found the basement stairs and descended, Sarah covering their rear, Lily between them. At the bottom, they found a locked door. And from behind it, very faintly, the sound of a child crying. The lock was industrial grade, but the doorframe was rotted wood. Jake braced himself and kicked just above the handle. The frame splintered on the second impact, and the door swung inward with a groan that seemed to echo through the entire building. The basement room was small, windowless, lit by a single battery-powered lantern. Huddled in the corner on a dirty mattress was a boy, sandy blonde hair matted, face smudged with tears and dirt, wearing pajamas that were now 3 sizes too filthy to identify their original color. Caleb Hale looked up with hollow, terrified eyes. "It's okay," Lily whispered, moving past Jake before he could stop her. She knelt down slowly, making herself small and non-threatening. "Caleb, my name is Lily. We're here to help you. Your dad is upstairs." The boy's lip trembled. "Dad?" His voice was hoarse, broken from crying. "He's been looking for you." "He never stopped," Lily extended her hand. "But we need to be very quiet, okay? The bad men can't know we're here yet." Caleb hesitated, then reached out with a small, shaking hand. Upstairs, Lou's voice boomed through the building, "Hello? Anybody here? My rig's transmission just died on the access road. Need a hand." Jake heard footsteps, 2 sets, moving toward the loading dock. Good. The distraction was working. "Sarah, get him out through the fire exit," Jake whispered. "I'm going for Ethan." "Jake, that's suicide. He won't leave without his son, and we need him to testify about who's behind this. Just go. Now." Sarah hesitated only a second, then scooped Caleb into her arms. The boy was 8 but looked smaller, weakened by captivity. Lily followed close behind as they disappeared up the basement stairs. Jake moved through the darkness toward the main work area. Through gaps in the floorboards above, he could see shadows and hear voices. "Told you, I just need a tow truck or," Lou's voice. "This is private property. You need to leave," a different voice, cold and authoritative. "Look, buddy, I'm just a driver with a problem. I said leave. Now." Jake found a stairwell and climbed slowly, every creak of the metal steps feeling like a gunshot. At the top, he peered around the corner. The workspace was laid out like a mechanic's fever dream: brake components, air lines, tools, diagrams pinned to makeshift boards. And at the center of it all, Ethan Hale sat on a stool, his face gaunt, hands trembling as they held a wrench he wasn't using. Two men stood near Lou at the loading dock entrance, their backs to Ethan. A third man, the one Jake had seen at Trinity Logistics, still in his expensive suit, stood beside Ethan with a pistol held casually at his side. "Mr. Hale, you're wasting time," the suit said quietly. "Those brake assemblies need to be ready by dawn. We have 16 trucks to prepare." "I can't do this anymore," Ethan whispered. "I can't kill people. Not for this." The suit pressed the gun barrel against Ethan's temple. "Your son dies if you don't finish. It's quite simple mathematics." "My son is already dead, isn't he?" Ethan's voice broke. "You never intended to release either of us. I heard you talking last night. You're going to kill us both regardless." The suit smiled. "Then you understand this is merely about how much he suffers before the end. Finish the work, Ethan. Give him a quick death instead of a slow 1 inch." Jake's blood boiled. He looked around frantically for anything he could use as a weapon. His hand closed around a heavy pipe wrench on a nearby workbench. At the loading dock, one of the guards was getting aggressive with Lou. "I said get out." Lou's fist connected with the man's jaw with a satisfying crack. The guard dropped like a stone. Everything happened at once. The second guard reached for his rifle. Lou grabbed it, and they struggled. The suit spun toward the commotion, gun raising. Jake charged. He swung the wrench in a wide arc, catching the suit's wrist. The gun clattered across the concrete floor. The man screamed, clutching his shattered wrist, and stumbled backward. "Ethan, run!" Jake shouted. But Ethan didn't run. He lunged for the scattered diagrams and papers on the workbench, grabbing handfuls of documents. "Evidence," he yelled. "These are their plans, all of it." The suit recovered faster than Jake expected, driving a shoulder into Jake's ribs. They crashed into the workbench, tools scattering. Jake's head cracked against metal, vision swimming. Through the haze, he saw Lou subdue the second guard with the rifle butt. But where was the third man? The answer came as gunfire erupted, not inside the building, but outside. Through the broken windows, Jake saw headlights and heard engines. Multiple vehicles arriving fast. The suit broke away from Jake, sprinting for the back exit. Ethan chased after him, papers clutched to his chest. "You're not getting away." "Ethan, no." Jake staggered to his feet. Outside, tires squealed. Jake reached the loading dock just in time to see a black sedan, not the van, tearing away down the access road, the suit visible in the driver's seat. Ethan stood in the dirt, breathing hard, still clutching the stolen documents. And approaching from the main road, sirens wailing and lights flashing, were 3 Oklahoma State Police cruisers. Sarah emerged from the shadows of the grain silo, Lily and Caleb with her. The boy saw his father and broke into a run. "Dad!" Ethan dropped the papers and fell to his knees, catching his son in an embrace that looked like it might never end. "Caleb, oh God, Caleb!" The police vehicle screeched to a stop, officers pouring out with weapons drawn. Jake raised his hands slowly. "We're the ones who called this in," he shouted. The criminals fled, black sedan, just left heading south. One cruiser immediately gave chase. The others approached cautiously. Lou limped out of the factory, the unconscious guard's rifle slung over his shoulder, grinning despite his split lip. Well, that was fun. Jake looked at Lily, who stood beside Sarah with tears streaming down her face, but she was smiling. They'd found the boy. They'd found Ethan. But the man who orchestrated everything was still out there. And tomorrow was Black Friday. The Oklahoma State Police interview room smelled of stale coffee and desperation. Ethan sat across from Detective Morrison, no relation to Lily, though the coincidence wasn't lost on anyone, with documents spread across the table like evidence at a trial. Turner Turnpike, mile marker 138, tomorrow at 2 p.m., Ethan said, his voice raw from exhaustion and emotion. Caleb slept in a room next door, finally safe, finally able to rest. 16 trucks have been prepared. The brake systems are rigged with remote disable devices, military surplus hardware, sophisticated stuff. They'll be activated wirelessly during the descent. And the armored trucks? Detective Morrison asked. 6 secure transit solutions vehicles, all carrying Black Friday cash transfers. Combined payload estimated at $47 million. Ethan pushed forward a document with route details. The crash will block the turnpike completely. Emergency responders will be overwhelmed. And during the chaos, the armored trucks, rerouted onto County Road 127, will be ambushed by a crew with military training. Jake stood against the wall, arms crossed, listening. Beside him, Sarah, Tommy, and Lou waited while Lily sat with her mother in the hallway, being debriefed by social services about her role in everything. "You're sure about the remote devices?" Morrison asked. "I installed them myself over the past 3 weeks," Ethan said quietly, shame thick in his voice. 16 trucks, all contracted with Trinity Logistics, all scheduled to travel the turnpike tomorrow afternoon. I logged the VIN numbers, they're in those papers. The devices look like standard brake monitoring systems. No one would notice them unless they knew what to look for. Can they be deactivated? Not remotely. Each device needs to be physically removed or have its power supply severed. It would take hours to track down all 16 trucks and disable them. Morrison's jaw tightened. Then we evacuate the turnpike. Shut it down for maintenance. They'll know, Ethan said. The operation leader, the man who escaped, he's monitoring everything. Police scanners, traffic reports, news. If the turnpike closes, he'll know we're onto him. He'll either activate the devices early on another route or Ethan's voice cracked. There are other children. 3 other mechanics like me, all being coerced. If he thinks the operation is compromised, he'll kill them and their kids to eliminate witnesses. The room fell silent. Jake stepped forward. What if we don't shut down the turnpike? What if we let them think it's still happening? Morrison frowned. Explain. We locate the 16 trucks, Ethan has their details. We disable the devices without the drivers knowing. Meanwhile, we set up a controlled operation on the turnpike. Make it look like the crash is happening, but we're actually in control. You're talking about using real trucks as bait, Morrison said. That's incredibly dangerous. So is letting them try this again next week with new targets, Sarah interjected. These people have resources, organization, and no conscience. This ends tomorrow, or it doesn't end at all. Morrison looked at Ethan. How many people are we talking about in the robbery crew? At least 12. The man who escaped, his name is Vincent Cross, former logistics executive, dishonorable discharge from the Army for black market weapons trading. He's the planner. But the actual crew are ex-military contractors. They'll be equipped with rifles, body armor, communication systems. Then we bring SWAT, FBI hostage rescue, state police tactical units. And Cross will see them coming from a mile away, Tommy said. We need something he won't expect. Lou grinned. He won't expect truckers. 6 hours later, dawn broke over the Turner Turnpike. Jake sat in his cab at a rest stop near mile marker 120, 18 miles from the target zone. Around him, an unusual convoy had assembled, 15 commercial trucks, the 16 sabotage vehicles minus one they hadn't located in time, all with their remote brake disablers now removed and disabled by a team of Oklahoma Highway Patrol mechanics. But that wasn't all. In the sleeper berths, cargo compartments, and even the trailers, tactical units waited in full gear. 20 SWAT officers, 8 FBI agents, and a dozen state troopers, all coordinated through encrypted radios. Sarah's voice came through the CB, "This is crazy. You know that, right?" "Completely insane," Jake agreed. "But it's going to work." The plan was deceptively simple. The trucks would proceed to mile marker 138 as scheduled. When Cross activated the disable signal, which he would, believing his devices were still operational, the trucks would simulate brake failure. They'd execute controlled maneuvers that looked like loss of control, creating the appearance of the planned disaster without actual carnage. Meanwhile, the armored trucks, real ones, with real cargo, guarded by undercover federal agents, would take the predicted detour onto County Road 127. And that's where Vincent Cross and his crew would be waiting. At 1:47 p.m., Jake's convoy began the descent toward mile marker 138. Traffic was heavy, Black Friday travelers heading home, families returning from holiday dinners. Innocent people who had no idea they were part of an operation. "All units, this is command," Detective Morrison's voice crackled through the radio. "Target vehicles approaching the ambush point. Suspects confirmed in position, 3 vehicles, 12 armed individuals. Authorization granted to engage on my mark." Jake's hands tightened on the wheel. Behind him, somewhere in this choreographed chaos, were the real villains. At exactly 2 p.m., his dashboard warning lights lit up, the signal that Cross had activated the disable command. "Now!" Jake shouted into the CB. 15 trucks began their carefully rehearsed performance. Jake pulled his steering wheel hard, tires screaming as he swerved into the shoulder lane. Behind him, trucks jackknifed with precision, blocking lanes without actually colliding. Air brakes hissed. Drivers shouted fake panic into their radios. To any observer, especially one monitoring remotely, it looked like catastrophic, simultaneous brake failure. Traffic ground to a halt. Civilian vehicles stopped, drivers emerging confused and frightened. In the distance, sirens wailed as prepositioned emergency vehicles responded to the disaster. "Armored convoy taking the detour," Morrison's voice confirmed. "Suspects are moving to intercept." County Road 127 was a narrow 2-lane highway through farmland, perfect for an ambush. The armored trucks approached a bend where 3 vehicles blocked the road ahead, a panel van, a pickup truck, and a sedan. Men in tactical gear emerged, weapons raised. "Everybody out. Hands up." The armored truck drivers complied, climbing out with raised hands, but these weren't security guards. They were FBI tactical operators in disguise. And from the fields on both sides of the road, from hidden positions in farm buildings and behind hay bales, tactical units rose like ghosts. "FBI. Drop your weapons." Gunfire erupted. Cross's crew, realizing the trap too late, tried to fight. But they were outgunned, outmaneuvered, and surrounded. Within 90 seconds, it was over. 11 suspects down, 1 fled on foot. Vincent Cross ran through the cornfield, suit jacket abandoned, pistol in hand. He made it 200 yards before Jake's truck, which had left the turnpike and circled through back roads, blocked his path on the farm access road. Jake stepped out, holding a tire iron. Cross raised his pistol, but his hand was still bandaged from where Jake had shattered his wrist the night before. The gun wavered. "It's over," Jake said simply. Behind Cross, state troopers emerged from the corn, weapons drawn. Cross slowly lowered the gun, a bitter smile on his face. "You drivers. You were never supposed to be a problem. Just victims. That's where you miscalculated," Jake said. "We look out for each other." Cross was taken into custody. And on the Turner Turnpike, the disaster was being safely cleared, confused travelers never knowing how close they'd come to a real catastrophe. The conference room at the Oklahoma City Police Department had been transformed into a makeshift reunion space. Coffee urns and donuts covered one table, someone's attempt at comfort food. But nobody was eating. Ethan sat with Caleb pulled close against his side, the boy's small hand gripping his father's shirt as if afraid to let go. Across from them, 3 other men sat with their own children, 2 girls and a boy, ages 6 to 10. The other mechanics Vincent Cross had coerced. They found them in a warehouse in Kansas City, Detective Morrison explained to the assembled group. All 3 kids safe. Cross's operation had surveillance teams watching the families, making sure their mechanics stayed compliant. "We've arrested 14 people total." Sarah wiped her eyes. 14 people willing to murder dozens of innocent travelers for money. $47 million makes people do terrible things, Morrison said. But thanks to all of you, no one died. The only casualties were the criminals themselves, and even most of them survived. Jake watched Ethan, whose face was a complicated mix of relief, guilt, and exhaustion. The man had been trapped in an impossible situation, forced to choose between strangers' lives and his son's. That kind of trauma didn't just disappear. "Mr. Hale," Morrison continued, "the district attorney has reviewed your cooperation and the circumstances of your coercion. While there will be charges, we can't ignore what happened, they'll be minimal. Community service, probation, mandatory counseling. You'll be with your son." Ethan's shoulders shook as he tried not to cry in front of Caleb. "Thank you," he whispered. Lou cleared his throat from the corner. "What about the trucks that were actually sabotaged? The ones before we got involved?" 3 accidents, as you know. The driver in Missouri, critical condition when this started, pulled through surgery yesterday. He'll recover fully. The other 2 accidents resulted in minor injuries only. We got incredibly lucky. Not luck, Lily said quietly from where she sat beside her mother. People were paying attention. Checking their trucks. Warning each other. Morrison smiled at her. "Speaking of which, young lady, the governor wants to present you with a civilian commendation for bravery. You saved lives before anyone even knew they were in danger." Lily blushed but didn't smile. Jake recognized that look, the weight of knowing what could have happened, what almost happened. Mrs. Morrison put an arm around her daughter. "Can we go home now? We've been away from home for 4 days, and Lily needs to rest." "Actually," Jake said, standing up, "before you go, there's something I want to say." The room quieted. Jake looked at Lily, this small, fierce girl who'd changed everything. 3 years ago, your father died in a trucking accident. Brake failure caused by negligence. And instead of letting that tragedy make you afraid or bitter, you decided to pay attention. To never look away when something seemed wrong, his voice caught. Your father would be so incredibly proud of you. Lily's eyes filled with tears. I just didn't want anyone else to lose their dad the way I lost mine. You know what the worst part was? Lily continued, her voice small but steady. After Dad died, people kept saying it was just an accident. Just bad luck. But it wasn't. Someone didn't do their job. Someone cut corners. And nobody wanted to talk about it because it was uncomfortable or complicated. She looked at Ethan, then at the other mechanics. When I saw Mr. Hale under those trucks, I knew something was wrong. And I couldn't stay quiet. Not again. Ethan stood up slowly, Caleb still attached to his side, and walked over to Lily. He knelt down so they were eye level. "You saved my son's life," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "By saving those truckers, by making people pay attention, you started a chain reaction that led to Caleb coming home. I can never repay that. But I promise you this, I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure trucks are safe. Making sure what happened to your father never happens to anyone else." Lily nodded, tears streaming freely now. They hugged, this little girl and the man she'd saved from an impossible situation, while Caleb wrapped his arms around both of them. 2 hours later, the convoy prepared to depart. The trucks were lined up in the parking lot, engines idling, ready to finally complete their interrupted routes. Jake finished his pre-drive inspection, a more thorough one than usual, given recent events, when Lily approached with her mother. "We're heading home to Wyoming," Mrs. Morrison said. But Lily wanted to say goodbye properly. "You could ride with us," Sarah offered, emerging from her cab. "At least as far as Denver. We're going that way." Lily looked up at her mother, hopeful. Mrs. Morrison hesitated, then smiled. "I think we've had enough adventure. But maybe this summer, when things are calmer, we could arrange a visit?" "Anytime," Jake said. "You're both honorary members of this convoy now." Lily stepped forward and hugged Jake tightly. "Thank you for believing me. For listening when I said something was wrong." "Thank you for being brave enough to speak up," Jake replied. "The world needs more people like you, Lily Morrison." One by one, the other truckers came to say goodbye. Lou, who slipped her a CB radio, Channel 19, "Kid, you ever need us, you call." Tommy, who gave her a thumb drive full of trucking safety resources. Sarah, who promised to write. And Ethan, who held Caleb's hand and said simply, "You gave me my son back." That's everything. As the convoy pulled out, Jake watched in his mirror as Lily and her mother stood in the parking lot, waving. The girl who'd run between trucks shouting warnings, who'd trusted her instincts when others would have stayed silent, who'd proven that paying attention and speaking up could change everything. The CB radio crackled with familiar voices, drivers sharing the story, already turning it into convoy legend. The girl at the rest stop. The mechanic who fought back. The truckers who became heroes. But Jake knew the real story was simpler and more profound. It was about a little girl who'd lost her father and decided that loss would mean something. That it would make her vigilant instead of afraid. That she would never, ever look away when something was wrong. Tommy's voice came through the radio, "Think we'll see her again?" Jake smiled, watching the sunrise paint the Oklahoma sky in shades of gold and pink. "Oh, I guarantee it. That kid's going places. Probably end up running the Department of Transportation someday, making sure trucks are safe for everyone. God help anyone who tries to cut corners with her watching," Lou laughed. The convoy rolled on, bound for different destinations but forever connected by 4 extraordinary days. Behind them, in that parking lot, Lily Morrison climbed into her mother's car. She pulled out the CB radio Lou had given her and turned it on, listening to the truckers' voices fade into static as they drove away. She didn't transmit, not yet. But she kept it on, kept listening. Because you never knew when someone might need help. When something might be wrong. When a small voice speaking up might save everything. Lily looked out the window as they drove toward home, past highways full of trucks carrying their cargo, past rest stops where travelers paused on their journeys, past ordinary moments that could turn extraordinary with just a little attention and a lot of courage. She thought of her father, and she thought of Caleb safe with Ethan, and she thought of all the people on that turnpike who'd never know how close they'd come to disaster. And Lily Morrison smiled, confident in one simple truth. The world was safer because she'd spoken up. And she'd do it again in a heartbeat.